Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. This is the post-fight review for the Oleksandr Usyk and Chazz Witherspoon fight in Chicago. Usyk getting the win after Witherspoon retires on his stool after 7 rounds. So what I'll do is I'll quickly wrap through some of the main highlights of the action, then on to a few comments from Usyk from the post-fight, and some overall thoughts about this fight and the what next, because it looks like it will be a title shot for Oleksandr Usyk next, courtesy of his WBO mandatory status. So this wasn't a perfect performance in Oleksandr Usyk for the first couple of rounds. He did look like a guy who'd been out of the ring for a year. After the first 2 rounds, I thought, yeah, he looks a little bit rusty. He looks like he's just easing his way into this fight. He wasn't really pushing the action too much, doing enough, I thought, to win the rounds, but it was probably slightly more competitive than I thought it would be. But from round 3, this is where Oleksandr Usyk really started to lift the tempo. He started to turn up the pressure on Chazz Witherspoon. He increased his movement. He was bamboozling Witherspoon with his footwork. He was landing a lot more, and he was finding a home for the left hand. And at that point, I sort of thought, yeah, this is really going to be going all one way from now. And basically it was. Usyk, over the course of the next 4 rounds, really did start to grind down Witherspoon and really sort of sap his will. And Witherspoon looked to try, especially from the 5th round, be a bit more aggressive. He sort of came out on the instruction of his corner, be more aggressive, close the distance. But he had 0 success. He was starting to look really ragged by about the 5th round. He was not as composed as he was in the first couple. And Usyk just started to turn it on and lay it on him, starting to really pepper him with all manner of shots. And Witherspoon really had no answer. It was at this point where just single shots were sort of firing back from Chazz Witherspoon. And you sort of got the impression that this was going to end in the next few rounds. And Witherspoon's lack of success was certainly making him appear a bit more desperate. His composure was all but gone from about round 6 on. And from that point, he only landed a couple of single shots for the rest of the fight. And it was all Usyk. And after 7 rounds, and there was a couple of points in the 7th round in that last minute, Usyk really poured it on. He was looking to take Witherspoon out. Just a couple of shots that Witherspoon threw out sort of stopped the referee intervening. You got that impression that the referee was about to jump in, but he let it continue. But Witherspoon didn't come out for round 8. Overall, what did I make of this performance? Well, it was a very Oleksandr Usyk type performance, especially from round 3 onwards. First couple of rounds, obviously, really wanting to get a look at Witherspoon, just get his bearings and see what was in front of him. And it wasn't really sort of fantastic in those first couple of rounds. But from round 3, it was sort of more Oleksandr Usyk-esque. And he did start to take the will of Chazz Witherspoon and really just ground him down, ground him into the dust. And he did a no muss after 7 rounds. And it was relatively in line with my prediction, which I thought that Usyk would do this sort of job on Witherspoon, and between rounds 6 and 8 would get a stoppage. It was ended up being a retirement, but effectively it's the same thing. But yeah, I think he will be better for the rounds because obviously a year out of the ring, he needed a bit of action. And in the post-fight, he was asked, did you feel like you could have taken him out a couple of times in that fight? It looked like you may have been able to. And he said, look, I was just looking to fight to a plan. I was looking to box. And he was happy just following the plan of what his trainer had said. And I think, there maybe was some opportunities, especially from about round 4 onwards, where Witherspoon maybe was there for the taking. But Usyk will be better for having these rounds, because bear in mind, he's the WBO mandatory. And that is likely to be his next fight some point, in the first half of 2020. We don't know who he's going to be fighting, and obviously there's been a lot of talk this week starting to bubble up that one of the belts that Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz are fighting for in the rematch on December 7th may have to be dropped, because obviously the WBO's mandatory will be due, and also the IBF mandatory will be due. Kubrat Pulev, according to the IBF, will have to have his shot before the end of May. So whoever wins that fight on December 7th may be forced into the situation of dropping a belt, which could end up up having Usyk fighting for a vacant title against someone in the WBO top 15. You've got Tyson Fury number 2, you have Anthony Joshua number 3, Joseph Parker number 4, so maybe Usyk Parker could be on the horizon. It's all sort of up in the air at the moment, and it's hard to predict these things more than 6 months out. It is the heavyweight division after all, but Usyk will be ready for a title shot in 2020. Is this the best preparation, moving up from cruiserweight, having a year out, and then facing Chazz Witherspoon? Yeah, not really, but I guess Witherspoon gave him some rounds, which was the objective for Oleksandr Usyk. Go in there, do his thing, get the win, protect that WBO mandatory slot, and then obviously on to the next one. And he said if that is his next fight, well, he will be ready to fight. And of course, when he was asked how did he feel about that win, he did his obligatory I am very feel. He said, I'm very happy, and then switching to his native tongue. And he said there was a little bit of difference fighting at heavyweight, but not much. He said he's fought at heavyweight before. And overall, I mean, the positives from this, he got some rounds, the footwork looked good, the movement looked good. I mean, after a couple of rounds when he did start to turn on the pressure, that footwork proved key to really sort of bamboozling Witherspoon, and he was able to almost effectively get off his shots at will. And he's not a massive puncher, but he was starting to really wear Witherspoon down through the weight of the shots that were landing repeatedly, especially from round 3 onwards. Witherspoon, obviously, he's not the best opponent. It's hard to see and hard to gauge, how much we can take from this fight because the opponent is of a lower level than we were maybe expecting. But even if it was Tyrone Spong or Carlos Takam, it would have only told us so much. Those guys are not at the top of the division. And really, Oleksandr Usyk, it's going to be make or break when he does reach that title fight, whoever that may be against. But the performance was okay. He got the job done. I wasn't necessarily enamored with all of it, but it was a very sort of Oleksandr Usyk type performance, just with a little bit of ring rust attached to it. He's obviously been out for a year, but a win is a win is a win. What did you make of that performance? Chazz Witherspoon retiring on his stool, and Oleksandr Usyk on to the next one, which could be a title fight in 2020. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.